What does the Great White North have to offer regarding terrifying animals with dubious existence? Perhaps a humanoid beaver man? Let's find out. Welcome back, y'all. I have another cryptid video for you. This time we are taking a gander at some of Canada's creepy cryptids. Canada has a variety of cryptic critters ranging from lurking lake monsters to scary giant wolves. I've also added some doodles to the entries, just like the last time. I hope you enjoy. Ogopogo, Okanagan Lake, British Columbia. Ogopogo is Canada's most well-known cryptid. I remember reading about him at several of my childhood book fairs. He's a 40 to 50 foot long serpentine monster that lives in Lake Okanagan, British Columbia. His green body is said to be thicker than a telephone pole, and we cannot forget the trademark horns on top of his head. Ogopogo has deep ties to local native mythology. He's more of a folkloric mythical creature than a cryptid. To the Sa-Wipmuk and the Si-Yilix natives of BC, Ogopogo is known as Nahaha Itku, or Naitaka. Naitaka could translate to both water demon or water god. He can be found in petroglyphs and various other forms of native art. It is believed that Naitaka required a live sacrifice if the people wanted to safely cross the lake, so the First Nations people would often sacrifice small animals. However, there was one man in particular who did not believe in Naitaka, Chief Tim Basket. He refused to sacrifice anything and even denied Naitaka's existence. When he and his family got into the water, Naitaka created a whirlpool with his long tail and sucked the entire canoe and its occupants deep into the lake. Some believe this story to be a misunderstanding between the indigenous people and the white people. When the settlers saw the natives give offerings to Lake Okanagan, they thought it was to appease the monster, but the Aboriginals were actually thanking Naitaka for providing them with food and water. Which story do you believe? One of the oldest known sightings of Ogopogo was in 1873, sighted by BC pioneer Susan Allison at her home in West Kelowna. She was waiting for her husband to return from Okanagan Mission when she reported seeing a snake-like creature in the water of Lake Okanagan. Susan was familiar with the First Nations legends of Naitaka and feared the worst for her husband, but he eventually did return home. While her husband did not believe her story, a local mining superintendent, Thomas Smitherin, reported that he too had seen the monster that very day. Altogether, Ogopogo has had over 200 sightings, which is a lot for a cryptid. Can such sightings point towards the myth being real? Is Ogopogo lurking in the depths of Lake Okanagan? Is he a prehistoric dinosaur that remains alive in the safety of the water, or are these sightings simply misidentifications? Let me know what you think. This cryptid has a lot of history, so there's a good chance I might go into more detail in the future. Check this out. At the bottom of Lake Okanagan rests this sculpture. Terrifying, isn't it? Imagine wandering across this by chance. This Ogopogo statue is about 30 feet below the surface and is 8 feet tall and 14 feet long. It was installed in the early 1990s by Doug Lundgren and his team at Diving Dynamics, a local commercial diving company in Kelowna. Damn, that is horrifying. No offense to whoever made the sculpture, but it is something. This is my drawing of Ogopogo. I wanted to make him really long and twisty and serpentine. I know some art of him has legs, some doesn't. I went legless because I thought he looked cool. I might have made him a little too cute, he's not very menacing looking, but that's okay. Old Yellow Top, Cobalt, Ontario. Old Yellow Top is a hairy humanoid, aka Bigfoot, sighted around Cobalt, Timiskaming district in Ontario. The sighting spans over 64 years, from 1906 to 1970. Mr. Yellowtop is approximately 7 feet tall and boasts a unique feature amongst Sasquatches. He's a blonde. From the shoulders up, his fur is a pale blonde, and that looks particularly striking in this one photo. He's known as a marked hominid, which is a term created by cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman in 1999 to describe any hairy biped creature with two-tone coloration. Another example being the Metchenny from Russia, who has a white marked forearm. Old Yellowtop's first appearance in September 1906 was at the Violet Mine. A group of workers who were there to build the framework of the mine sighted Old Yellowtop several different times. He popped up all over the worksite. The men reported that the humanoid was curious and kept watching them from a safe distance. In April 1947, he was back again. This time, a woman and her young son were walking along the railroad tracks into Cobalt. The mother was wary of black bears as it was early spring and cub season. Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted a dark figure, but was shocked to see a man-like beast covered in brown fur with a light head. Old Yellowtop paid the two no mind and wandered off into the woods near Lake Gillies. He was seen for the last time on August 4th, 1970. A group of 27 miners and one bus driver were driving down the rocky road of the Cobalt Lode mine when Old Yellowtop crossed the road in front of their bus. The driver slammed on the brakes before losing control and going off the road. The bus just barely stopped before a dangerously steep cliff drop that would have been fatal. The driver described the figure the same as the witnesses before: dark fur with light fur above the shoulders. At this point, Yellowtop would have been over 60 years old. So he's a senior. There haven't been any sightings of Old Yellowtop since the bus incident. Some believe he might have passed away due to his old age, but who really knows the lifespan of a Sasquatch? I hope he's happy. He looks like a chill dude. This is my drawing of Mr. Yellowtop, and it's very cute. As you can see, it's kind of sketchy compared to the other ones, but I liked the grayscale. I don't know why, but it tickled my fancy, so I decided to leave it as it was, and I just added a little flower. And obviously I took some creative liberty and I made his arms and the tops of his feet white as well, just for some flair. Ponik, Lake Pohinagamook, Quebec. Here's another lake monster. This one's name is Ponik, and he resides in Lake Pohinagamook, Quebec. His body is known to resemble an overturned canoe with ridges down its back and onto its tail. Some say Ponik has 2 humps, some say 3, others report no humps. Descriptions vary. Ponik has the classic long neck and horse-shaped head look. He has short little legs with flippers for feet, and his body color is usually described as black or brown. Ponik is estimated to be 30 to 60 feet long. Ponik was first sighted around 1873, but details are scarce. Louis Berube, a lumberjack at the time, claimed to have seen something huge that might be a fish. Very convincing. Local man Benoit Lavassier also claims to have seen Ponik shortly after Louis. He says he saw a monster in the lake that was more than 25 feet long. It bobbed its head in the water before diving away. In 1957, local priest Father Leopold Plante was fishing at Lake Pohinagamook when he sighted something black with 2 humps in the water. As he reeled in his line, the unknown figure dove away into the depths. Mayor of Pohinagamook, Guy LeBlanc, reported a possible Ponik sighting in 1990. He was out on the lake with his friends in his boat when they encountered an aquatic beast. We saw a big, big fish beside my boat. He was swimming, and he was very nice. He swam about 10 seconds for us, and that was incredible, said LeBlanc. While LeBlanc personally believes he saw a giant sturgeon, others think otherwise. Sightings began to surge after this. Father Calixte Berube reported sighting what he believed to be Ponik sometime in the 2000s. Along with 15 other people, Father Berube observed the monster around 4 in the afternoon. We saw the back with the dorsal fin. It frolicked like a fish and shimmered in the sun. It disappeared and reappeared further along. One moment it began to turn around and around as if it were amusing itself. There wasn't time to take photographs. People stopped on the road to watch. Sir, I think one photo of this magical moment would have been okay. This encounter must have taken several minutes. This is my drawing of Ponik. I wanted to try to do like a lineless style. I'm not very confident in my digital art skills, but I want to get better. So if you have any tips, let me know. But I made him a dark, dark purple. Or black, black tinted purple, maybe. And I gave him a bunch of ridges on his back, because he's kind of plain, but yeah. Another one that's maybe a little too cute, to be a spooky cryptid. The Partridge Creek Monster, Partridge Creek, Yukon. This one is a doozy. What does doozy mean? The Partridge Creek Monster is a modern theropod dinosaur sighted in Partridge Creek, Yukon. It's closest appearance-wise to a Ceratosaurus. It was first reported in a newspaper story by Georges Dupuy in 1908, which describes the creature as a bipedal black dinosaur with thick, bristly fur, 50 foot long from snout to tail, 30 to 40 tons, and with a large horn on its nose. A furry dinosaur? Maybe feathered? Georges Dupuy's 1908 report in The Strand magazine covered 2 different encounters with the Partridge Creek monster. The first being in 1903. 2 men, James Lewis Butler and Yukon local Tom Limore, were out in the cold wilderness of the Arctic hunting for moose. While tracking 3 moose, the prey suddenly startled and absconded. The men investigated and came across huge clawed tracks and drag marks in the snow, the drag marks being the beast's tail dragging behind it. These paw prints were at least 5 feet long and 2.5 feet wide, the claws being a full foot each. They followed these tracks, but they eventually disappeared into a rocky gorge. Butler and Limor later met up with Georges Dupuy, Father Pierre Lavenue, and 5 unnamed indigenous people from the Clayoquot tribe. The group of men decided to search for the monster. Initially, they were unsuccessful, but later their group encountered the dinosaur near their campsite. The men were spooked by a horrifying roar. The beast for which we had been looking, a black, gigantic form, the corners of his mouth filled with blood-stained slime, his jaws munching something, I know not what, was slowly and heavily climbing the opposite side of the ravine, making the large boulders roll into the valley as he went. Apparently, they observed the dino for 10 whole minutes, so they got a great look. A Ceratosaurus! A Ceratosaurus of the Arctic Circle, said Father Lavenot as they watched in awe and terror. The second encounter was on Christmas Eve, 1907. Father Lavenot, along with 10, once again, unnamed indigenous natives, claimed to have seen the Partridge Creek monster. This time, the dinosaur had a dead caribou in its maw, and the father watched the beast crush ice as it crossed the river, then walked off into the wild with its dinner. Unfortunately, there are some issues with this frightening story. In modern day, we now know that theropods did not drag their tails behind them. Their tail naturally lays at a horizontal angle. Another problem is that the Ceratosaurus was smaller than this monster. The largest known species of Ceratosaurus was roughly only 23 feet long, but I mean, you never know. The world of dinosaurs is forever evolving as we discover more. The Monster of Partridge Creek story was originally published as a true story, but these days it's usually regarded as fictional. What do you believe? Was Georges Dupuis' story a hoax, or did he really see a living dinosaur in the Arctic Circle? Do modern dinosaurs exist? This is my drawing of the Partridge Creek monster. I wanted him to look, similar to a Ceratosaurus. So he has his nose and his little arms, and his tail is not dragging behind him, it is horizontal. So I guess that's not very accurate, but like I said, I was more concerned with making him look like an actual Ceratosaurus. Toronto Tunnel Monster, Toronto, Ontario. Did you know that deep beneath Toronto lies an abundance of rivers and creeks that have been built over and into the city's sewer system? Now you do. Another fun fact is that the Algonquin tribes of Canada have records of a mysterious ape-like creature living near these waterways. It's known as the Memegweshi to them, but it's also known as the Toronto Tunnel Monster or the Cabbagetown Tunnel Monster. In native legends, Memegweshi are small furry cryptids similar to monkeys. They are water spirits that dwell in and aside rivers and streams. We are specifically talking about the ones that used to, or still do, live around what is now the neighborhood of Cabbagetown, Toronto. Memegweshi are benign creatures, unless disrespected. Then they could cause trouble by stealing from humans and interrupting their daily lives. Some natives were even friendly with the Memegweshi and gave them gifts, such as tobacco. So after an entire city was built on top of them, what happened to the Memegweshi? Well, in August 1978, a more modern named Toronto Tunnel Monster was sighted for the first and only time. A kind man simply known as Ernest and his wife Barbara were raising a litter of kittens when one of the babies disappeared. Ernest was searching for the kitten around his apartment building when he came across what he described as a cave. He crawled inside, where he said, "I saw a living nightmare that I'll never forget." A monster described as the following. The eyes were orange and red, slanted. It was long and thin, almost like a monkey. 3 feet long, large teeth, weighing maybe 30 pounds with slate gray fur. The monster hissed at Ernest, "Go away, go away." It can talk? The tunnel monster ran off into the maze of sewers, and Ernest too got out of there as fast as possible. Barbara backed up Ernest's story, saying he was terrified when he came back to the apartment, and he doesn't scare easily. In March of 1979, Ernest returned to this very same cave with the Toronto Sun, and they found the carcass of a cat. It is unclear if this cat was Ernest's lost kitten, but I hope not. The Toronto Tunnel Monster's physical description is very similar to a more well-known cryptid, the chupacabra. They are both small, monkey-like animals with red eyes that seemingly eat animals. Another theory is that the tunnel monster is an alien. But the most widely accepted theory is that this monster was simply a human. Perhaps a homeless man or child, given its size. If it was a chupacabra, would it be able to talk? Same question for the alien. Let me know what you think. This is a doodle of the Toronto Tunnel Monster, and he's hissing, go away. So that's what he does. He can talk, apparently. Pretty cool. He is very chupacabra-ish, isn't he? Very cool. I love cryptids. Wow, look at all those cryptids. Great White Wolf, Nahanni Valley, Northwest Territories. The great white wolf, sometimes conflated with the wahila, is a large bear-like wolf located in Alaska and the Northwest Territories, specifically Nahanni Valley. The white wolf has a wide face, broad shoulders, spaced paws, and long white fur. Her front legs are longer than her hind legs. She has a thicker than proportionate tail and smaller ears. A beast of a puppy. She's a solitary creature, so luckily you won't come across more than one giant wolf at a time. In native legends, the white wolf is an evil spirit that decapitates its victims. In fact, the white wolf is said to be the monster responsible for Nahanni Valley's nickname, Valley of the Headless Men. The valley obtained this nickname after a string of mysterious deaths in the area, of which the bodies were missing their heads. Did the great white wolf do this? During the 1940s or 1950s, mechanic Frank Graves reported his white wolf encounter to cryptozoologist Ivan T. Sanderson. An enormous white thing that I at first thought must be a polar bear sort of wandered out of the trees. It wasn't a bear. It looked more like a gigantic dog. It stood straight up on rather long legs, more like a dog or a wolf. I had seen plenty of wolves, and some of them are enormous enough up there, but this thing was 20 times the size of any wolf I have ever heard of. By a sort of reflex action, I fired at it, and it was less than 20 paces away, and only partly screened by little bushes. I hit it with 2 barrels of ball shot. It didn't even jump, but turned away from me and just walked back into the forest. I reloaded and fired again, and I know I hit it in the rear, but it just kept on walking. Now I will let you know that in 2018, Graves revealed that he believed the animal to have been a Mackenzie timber wolf, a Canadian subspecies of gray wolf. But I don't think a regular wolf would be able to simply walk off 2 shots from a double-barreled 12-gauge shotgun. I am refraining from calling the white wolf wahila because as far as I can find, the great white wolf of Nahanni Valley is not wahila. Wahila is a different giant wolf sighted in northern Michigan. It is possible these 2 cases could be the same species of giant wolf. I want to believe this pretty pup, the great white wolf, would sense I am of good nature and bring me no harm. This is the great white wolf. I made her very bloody because she's mean, you know? And her little ears, broad shoulders, fluffy tail. Like I said in the video, beast of a puppy. Canadian fur-bearing trout. Fur-bearing trout. Sometimes the fish get cold. The fur-bearing trout is a trout that has grown fur to regulate body temperature in freezing water. These fish are found in northern North America, specifically Canada, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. They were discovered in the 17th century by Scottish immigrants. One man wrote a letter to his family telling of the plentiful abundance of furred animal and fish. Supposedly, he even sent one back home. According to The Canadian Hairy Trout by Takashi Yamada, the Canadian fur-bearing trout can be found in most waters in Canada, except for Prince Edward Island and Manitoba. Very sad for them. A trout with thick white fur was caught in Lake Superior off Gros Cap in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Ross C. Job taxidermied the specimen and it was sold. The new owner presented the specimen to the Royal Museum of Scotland, and it was revealed that this particular fur-bearing trout was a hoax. The white fur of a rabbit was reported to have been ingeniously attached to the trout. It was revealed that Ross C. Job had previously seen a fur-bearing trout mount at a local lodge, and he made his own improved version. Job went out to sell these novelty fur-bearing trouts with different stores such as the Hudson's Bay Company. Are fur-bearing trout a real rarity, or are they all fishy frauds? They're similar to jackalopes in a way. Widespread, they are taxidermied hoaxes and are usually classified as fearsome critters. Fearsome critters are tall-tale animals jokingly said to inhabit the wilderness in or around logging camps in North American lumberjack folklore. And last but certainly not least, this is the Canadian fur-bearing trout. Trout with fur. Honestly, I spent the most time on this drawing when it is literally a joke entry to the video, but either way, I love him. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. I hope y'all enjoyed my video about my home country's cryptids and mythical creatures. To be honest, I wasn't even aware of a couple of these fellows, so it was really fun learning about them. Let me know your favorite cryptid of any country in the comments, or if you know of any Canadian cryptids you'd add to my list, let me know. There are a lot more Canuck cryptids, so expect to hear about them in the future. Goodbye.